I know that the biggest wound in Our Lady's heart is abortion. I want to invoke you, Mother, Virgen de Guadalupe, to come and wrap us with your mantle of love, wherever there's anxiety or fear, to bring us peace, and intercede, Our Lady, so that we can hear the message that God has for us and what God wants us to do with this message. Thank you, Our Lady, for being our mother. Thank you for loving us, and thank you for being so loving and patient. And thank you for holding the arm of God the Father. Thank you because through your intercession, the time of mercy is extending. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Glory be to the Father, to the Son, to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, now and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
And we cover ourselves and our family members with the precious blood of the Son, Lord Jesus Christ. And in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you. So I was born and raised in California, and my parents, they immigrated from Mexico. They're from a state called Jalisco. And back in the 70s, they came to this country wanting the American dream, wanting a better life for their future children. And when I was growing up at home, I was baptized into the Catholic faith. I have an older sister and a younger brother, but we never practiced our faith at home. We never prayed as a family. We never prayed the rosary. I don't remember seeing a Bible. I had no idea the saints existed. And we basically didn't have God. We didn't have Jesus as our king in our home. So growing up, everything that was important to us was very about the world. My dad would always say, Patricia, I migrated to this country as an immigrant. To be important and to be worthy and to be somebody in this country, you have to have a good job. You have to be successful when you grow up, travel the world, and have good credit, take care of your credit, and that makes you, success makes you worthy. My mom, she never worked when I was young. She was a stay-at-home mom, which is a beautiful thing. But society tells you, right, if you're a stay-at-home mom, that you're not really doing anything with your life, that you're not successful, you're not traveling, you're not, that woman that has that successful job 9 to 5. And my mom was a beautiful mom growing up, but throughout the years, she would hang out with friends that would tell her, you're not doing anything with your life. You're just a slave. You're just cooking and cleaning all the time. You're wasting your life. And she started to believe these lies. These are the lies that society tells us today, even today. And it's very sad because the truth of it all is that when we face God on our judgment day as women, the most important role that we would ever have in our earthly life is being a wife and being a mother. And he's not going to hold us accountable for the education that we had, the jobs that we had, where did we travel, did we have a bachelor's degree, what did we do with our, he's gonna ask us how much do we love our husbands and our children, and that's the truth. But society today tells us that being a homemaker, you're not doing anything, you're not successful. And a lot of women that stay home and they live this beautiful vocation, they believe that lie as well. And so my mom started to feel, that she wasn't doing anything and she wasn't successful, and it was a burden to her. And anyhow, it was that time that I had to prepare for my Holy Communion. And we were the typical Mexican family that was like, okay, you're about, 7, 8 years old. It's time to register you to get your Holy Communion, to your CCD classes. And so when I was in CCD, that's when I learned about Jesus, and that's where I learned about Mary. That's where I had, the most knowledge of my faith a little bit. I didn't understand too much, but I had a beautiful relationship with God the Father. Go to my backyard a lot after CCD, and I would look at the sky, and I would talk to God the Father, and I felt His love, and I felt that He really loved me a lot. And it was a short period that, I had this relationship with Him, and I would tell my mom that I wanted to send Him love notes, and I wanted to send them off to heaven, but how was I gonna, you can't send a note in the mail to heaven. How was I going to send it off to heaven? So on a balloon, I would write these little love notes, and then I'd stand in my backyard and I'd just let the balloon go, and I would wait until it disappeared in the clouds. And I believe that God received my love note. I believe my little balloon flew off into heaven, and I just felt his presence a lot during this preparation of Holy Communion. But then after that, I received my Holy Communion, and that was it. This was back in the 90s, and my mom got very involved in the New Age. You guys know what the New Age is, right? Santeria, witchcraft, crystals. She believed in reincarnation, and we got really involved in this movement. It was to the point where, I was young, and my sister was young as well. She would take us to conventions, like to retreats, where, Deepak Chopra, or whatever his name is, the guru, and, they would do hypnosis, they would do our tarot card readings, and they would read our past lives, they would do Reiki sessions, and so involved into the occult. My sister and I would, we'd play the Ouija board a lot. We would invoke our dead uncle and our dead, grandfather, and it was pretty heavy. To the point where my mom started to change. I believe with my heart that the occult, the New Age movement, destroyed my family completely. My parents were never married through the church, so the little unity that we had, it was pretty bad with the New Age. 1992, we remember that there was no internet, there was no cell phones, there was no YouTube, there was none of that. So I didn't even know that a pro-life movement existed. I didn't have any type of sexual education at home. I always say your parents can't give you something that they don't have. I never knew that my purity, that my virginity was something so beautiful that I had to take care of and treasure until I was married, until I came to the altar before God, because sexuality is so beautiful, and it was created for marriage, and it was created to be fruitful. But society distorts what love is today, and I didn't know the truth. And this is so sad because a lot of young kids don't know what truth is. They don't know their worth. They don't know their identity in Christ. And they don't know this because their parents don't teach them. And their parents don't teach them because their parents were never taught. And it's a pattern that keeps going and that needs to be broken. And I'm sure many of you can relate, but coming from a Hispanic culture, it's embarrassing to talk about sex in your family, right? It's kind of shameful, it's embarrassing, you just kind of don't do it. But it's something that needs to be done, because if parents do not tell the truth to their children, then the world will lie to them, and the world will deceive them, and they will be lost. And this is what's happening today, and that's what happened to me, unfortunately. And when I was in the 6th grade, this is 1992, so today it's much worse in schools, much worse. But back in 1992, in the 6th grade, I was 12 years old. They told us that we were going to have a sex ed course, a course on sexuality. My mom gave me permission, because back then you needed a parent's consent and permission. Today, parents have no rights over what children learn in schools and what children do in abortion clinics. And if children want to go on birth control, the parents have no right and no say. And it's sad because parents today are losing so many over their child, even though they live under their roof. But back then, I had to get a permission slip to go to this course. My mom gave me permission. She thought it was great that I was going to learn how to practice safe sex and be responsible. So she let me have this, she let me go to this class. And I remember getting to school, and on my desk there was a banana and all these condoms and all these birth control pills. And I didn't know what sex was. I never thought of sex. I was playing with Barbie dolls at this point, and dolls, and catching lizards at the park, and I was pretty much pure in my mind. And what I believe with my whole heart is that the abortion industry, I know this, they go after the little ones. So abortion is a big money maker. It's a blood market. And they need to obtain so many abortions a month. They have a quota, okay? So they know that parents do not educate their children at home. And they say, okay, well, we need future abortion patients. So, we will be the educators of those children, since they're not being fully educated at home. We will go into the schools, and we'll get them young, and we'll set up this trap, right? And this trap is promoting something called safe sex that does not exist. So the abortion industry knows that birth control does not work, condoms don't work, and if they can talk about this and get young kids curious about sex, well, young kids will start experimenting. And they know that these girls will come out on an unwanted pregnancy and a couple years later end up in an abortion clinic. That's what happens. And they know that once a woman has an abortion one time, she will come back for a second abortion because she was never taught to protect her chastity. Because when she leaves that abortion clinic, she's gonna go back into the same air, right? The disordered sexual life, not knowing love is, and she's gonna come back for a second and a third abortion. And this is very common, that women have multiple abortions and men have multiple abortions. I actually met one today that said, yes, I'm one of those who had multiple abortions. There are men that had so many girlfriends and had them have abortions. This is common for men and women. But this is all a trap that the abortion industry sets up, and they start with the little ones. They go for the innocent. And I was a victim of abortion for the first time at the age of 12. So these educators came into my school, and they showed us how to apply the condom on the banana. And they talked about birth control, and they spoke about abortion. They said, okay, girls, it's not really a baby until you're 5 months pregnant. It's just a clump of cells, a sac of tissue, because it's not fully formed. And remember, back then we didn't have the technology. We didn't have these cool 4D ultrasounds. We didn't have, computers and video. We didn't have all this stuff. Back then, when you had to research something, you had to have your parents drop you off at the library. You had to go look through the books, and pull out the books and look through the pages. I mean, we didn't have what we have today. And I was completely ignorant. I was believing the lies that they were telling me. So it's not really a baby until you're 5 months pregnant. And if you find yourself in a crisis, you're pregnant, come to our clinic. We can give you an abortion, and we will never tell your parents. Your confidentiality is very important to us. We'll call you and we'll say that we're your best friend or your friend Jane. We'll send stuff in the mail, but we won't say it's us. And we have your back. You can always come to us for free condoms, free birth control. And I thought they were awesome. I thought they were there to for the youth. I thought I believed everything they said. So they taught us, because safe sex doesn't exist, but how to protect ourselves and be responsible. But they never spoke about the heart. They never spoke about human dignity. They never spoke about the consequences when you have sex before marriage. They never spoke about heartbreak and STDs and all these things that can happen. They didn't speak about the human heart, the human person at all. It was all about curiosity and experimenting. And remember when I left that course that day in school back in 1992, I started to hear about all my friends losing their virginity and people getting pregnant and people having an abortion. It was working. What they did, what the abortion industry did to set up the trap was working. And like I said, that same year, 1992, was really bad with my parents and the new age thing. My mom kind of went crazy a little bit, and it wasn't herself anymore. And one day she packed her bags, and she said, I'm leaving. I'm going back to Mexico. I feel like I'm a little bird in a gold cage. I'm just a slave. Being a housewife is nothing. I'm not doing anything with my life, and I'm leaving. I'm going back to Mexico. And when she left, I was angry, and I became very rebellious. And I've spoken to so many youth around the world, and most of the kids that are rebellious and they're angry inside is because they have a big wound. And most of them have a mama or a dada wound, and I can tell you that divorce is a huge wound. And I think I haven't grown out of it. I still am hurt by it. And it was, it caused me so much anger. I started to pull my hair out from stress. It's called trichotillomania. And I didn't know how to deal with my anger. But I was a party girl. I was very popular in school. I was very vain. I only cared about what I looked like, what I wore, what car I drove. I had to be the prettiest girl. And my dreams were, to be famous and to have a lot of money and to travel the world and be important. Those were the values that I had in my heart. And when I was 19 years old, I met my first serious boyfriend. And so we started to practice safe sex, what we learned, and something failed, something went wrong. I started to feel very nauseous. I felt very sick, and I said, okay, well, I'm not getting my menstrual cycle. I don't feel well. I'm just gonna go ahead and take a pregnancy test. When the test came out positive, it was not scary, it was not fearful, it was panic mode. Like, the first thing is, my life is over. Everything I had dreamed for myself, everything I wanted to do, now I'm gonna be what my mom ran from, right? That person that's just stuck in a home, just being a slave and not doing anything with her life, and it gave me panic. The second thing that came into my mind was my father. I'm going to shame my father. He's gonna kick me out of the house. Everybody in Mexico, I don't know if your community, but the gossip. When something happens, the gossip goes back to your country and it goes back to the towns like lightning bolt. And I thought, oh, the gossip, my dad, his reputation, I can't do this to him. And I was really scared. But when I called my boyfriend and I gave him the news that I was pregnant, he was so excited. And he gave me those strong words of encouragement. You are not alone. I'm going to protect you. You're gonna be okay. I will take care of you. Don't get scared. And his words of security gave me the strength to say, you know what? Yeah, I can continue my pregnancy. I can do this. It's not that bad. And it eased the panic, right, in my heart. And that's exactly what men were created to be. God created men to be like Saint Joseph, to protect women, to protect the family. And and we think of abortion, we always think the women who have abortions, the women. But I can tell you, about working in this ministry for 15 years and talking to thousands of women who have had abortions, there are more men today that are scared to be fathers than women scared to be mothers. There are more men who choose abortion and have abortions than women today. I believe with my whole heart that if every male, every politician that is a male, every educator, every lawyer, every doctor, everybody who is male would defend life, I don't think abortion would exist in this world. When the male takes responsibility and authority to protect the family, that has power to save that baby's life. And that's exactly what my boyfriend did. And so I was pregnant and I was excited, but when I was 4 months pregnant, my friends came over to my house. It was 4 of my best friends, and they came over crying and they said, "You're making the worst mistake of your life. What are you doing? You're not ready to be a mother. Do you remember in school we learned that it's not really a baby until you're 5 months pregnant? You have time to have an abortion, but you have to do it now. Look, refocus on your goals. Please, this is just the worst mistake. It's not the time." And again, the panic mode, the fear. And I know that every woman who has an abortion, it's all rooted in fear and lack of support. But I did have support from my boyfriend, but I was worried about myself. It's a very selfish decision. I was worried about me and my future and the I. And I thought, you know what, they're right. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my appointment to have an abortion. But my boyfriend's Mexican. Like, Mexican people don't have abortions. My mom has 12 brothers and sisters, and my dad has 14. We have big families in Mexico, and they just don't believe in abortion. This is something that the American people do. That's what my ignorant mind thought. So I'll just make my life easy. I'll just tell him I had a miscarriage, and then I will continue to be the same girl I was before I was pregnant, and I'll refocus on my goals, and my dad would never find out. And so I made my appointment at the abortion clinic at 9 o'clock in the morning. I was the first patient. I parked my car, and I can tell you that when I walked out of my car and I looked at the abortion building, the embarrassment that I felt in my heart and the shame was so great. Even though it's legal in our country, even though everybody's telling you it's the best choice, there's something scary and there's something so embarrassing and shameful about it. It's embarrassing. And I remember looking down at the floor and thinking to myself, I'm not gonna look at anybody in the waiting room. I don't wanna see somebody I know. This is too shameful. I'm just gonna go in there and get this over with and then forget about this. But when I walked into the waiting room, I noticed a bunch of sneakers in the waiting room. And I had the courage to look up. And it was full of young girls that were 13, 14, 15 years old. It was about 30 of them. And it shocked me because it was a Tuesday morning. And so I walk up to the receptionist and I ask her, I'm like, why are these little girls here? Like, why aren't they in school? Why are they here? Oh, well, here in the state of California, it's legal for a girl to cut school and to have an abortion, and her parents don't have any rights, or they don't need their parents' consent. But in California today, if you go to the pharmacy, if you go to Rite Aid, if you go to CVS, and you want to get NyQuil, if you want to get some Tylenol, you have to be 21 years of age. Isn't that contradictive? But yeah, these little girls are having abortions and their parents have no idea. And there's been a case in California where a mother has dropped off her child at junior high, thinking her daughter was in school all day, and gets saying, your daughter did not go to school, your daughter underwent an abortion and she did not survive that abortion. This is really scary because women die during abortions. They're very dangerous. So I go into the operation room and I sit down, and I don't know what an abortion is. Like I said, there was the internet was barely starting. I mean, people didn't have computers in their home. And I sit there, and the abortionist comes in and she says, okay, Patricia, look, you don't have to worry. This is only gonna take 5 minutes. I've had an abortion myself, if that makes you feel better. And I performed 2 abortions on my daughter last year. My daughter's okay, I'm okay, you're gonna be okay. This is the best solution to your problem. And I, at the time, was working as a receptionist in the medical field, and I really respected doctors. I worked for doctors, and I was always trained, patient care is number 1, patient honesty, so I trusted her. And I remember I laid on the bed, and she came in with the ultrasound machine. She just wanted to make sure how far along I was before the abortion. And I remember I wanted to see the screen. And I asked her, can I look at the screen? And she said, why? I said, because I just want to see if there is a baby or not. And she said, honey, I'm looking at a sac of tissue, a clump of cells, don't worry. And the screen was facing her, and she never let me see. I heard the vacuum machine. It's pretty scary. It's 28 times stronger than your vacuum that you have at home. But at the same time, I felt relieved. I thought that my problem was over. I thought I was liberated and I was free, but I was lied to. She said, the only symptoms you're gonna have is cramping and bleeding. You can take some Tylenol and go back to your work. But that was a lie. She never told me about post-abortion syndrome. She never told me that I would have mental disorders, emotional disorders, and even physical damage after that abortion. And I left that clinic thinking that I was the same person before I was pregnant. I called my boyfriend, I gave him the fake news, told him I had a miscarriage, and he was crying. And then the symptoms started for both of us. We both started to feel depressed, sad, empty. I had so much anxiety, I would pull my hair out a lot. My self-esteem was terrible. I started to develop anorexia. My emotions were like a roller coaster. I'd get angry at everything. I'd cry at everything. I had nightmares. I couldn't see children in public. Like, it would traumatize me. I'd feel so guilty. And he would tell me all the time, I'm having the same nightmare over and over. And I'd ask him, well, what kind of nightmare is it? Well, this little girl runs up to me and she calls me daddy. And it would really get me mad. And I'd say, that pregnancy was just a clump of cells. That's what the doctor saw. So it was not even a baby at all. It wasn't even formed. And we started to use birth control pills because the condom failed. And I thought I was protecting myself. I thought I was being responsible. And a couple months later, I started to feel sick again. And started to feel sick, and I thought, wait a minute, no. There's no way I'm pregnant again. I'm being responsible. I'm practicing safe sex, what they taught me in school. And I took the pregnancy test, and it came out, of course, positive. And I just couldn't believe it. I said, okay, I am going to not tell anybody about this. I'm going to go do this by myself. It's too shameful to tell my friends. It's too shameful to go back to the same clinic. I'm going to go to a totally different one. And I'm just not even going to tell my boyfriend because he's going to want me to continue the pregnancy, and there's no way. I'm going to go to Planned Parenthood this time. So I made an appointment with Planned Parenthood because I admired them. I had heard of them, and I remembered them from school, and they always handed out free condoms and birth control, and I thought they were great. So I had my appointment with them, and I decided to block myself. I said, okay, same thing, I'm not gonna cry, I'm gonna close my eyes, and I'm gonna lay here stiff, and I'm going to block myself and get through the 5 minutes. Well, when I did that, the abortionist started to applaud me, and she said, wow, you're amazing. I believe you're not kicking. Most women faint, cry, kick. You are so good during this abortion. You're making my job easy. I want to congratulate you because you're brave. She put me in the recovery room. It's a room in the back of Planned Parenthood. Gave me some tea, gave me some slippers, congratulated me, sent me off to my house with a big bag of condoms, a big bag of birth control pills, so I can continue practicing safe sex. And I know that they knew that I would be back again, because this is the trap. This is what the abortion industry does. They know that these women walk out of there completely messed up, and they're not gonna live a life of purity and chastity, and they'll be back again. And I was lied to and they never told me about post-abortion syndrome. And after the second abortion, things got worse. Mentally and emotionally, I had psychotic thoughts. I wanted to commit suicide. It was just so bad, and my boyfriend was getting worse because he was also suffering post-abortion syndrome. And our relationship was just getting really bad and ugly, and I'd get irritated with him all the time. It's very rare that a couple that has an abortion actually stay together. I think it's like 92% of couples that have an abortion, if they do not heal it, they end up separated or divorced. That's been proven. And we were doing not very well, but we continued, to hang on and continued our sexual relation. And again, months later, I started to feel sick, took the third pregnancy test, and it came out positive. And I was so angry. I thought, what's going on? What's going on? How did I get pregnant a third time? Because young kids think that they're invisible. They think that it will never happen to them. And parents, they think, oh, that will never happen to my son or my daughter. And it can happen to anybody. Any child that does not have the proper information at home about what true love is can fall into this trap. They can fall. Parents are the first educators, and it's their responsibility to tell their kids the truth, like I said. And, it's very common to hear, doing post-abortion therapy and healing. I've heard in the past 15 abortions, 8 abortions, 15 abortions, even a woman that had 23 abortions, they actually start using it as contraceptive. They fall into the same cycle. And this is very common, but it's just not common to hear it with a microphone, right, in the hand. So this time I thought, okay, I'm just gonna tell my boyfriend the truth. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna make my appointment to have an abortion. I'm going to tell him that I'm gonna have an abortion, and that's it. If he wants to come, great. If he doesn't, I don't care. So I said, that I'm pregnant, and he's very excited, and I said, look, I have an appointment for an abortion. I'm not gonna continue this pregnancy. And then he answered, but hey, I don't want to have an abortion. I don't want to have an abortion. I want to be a father. When he said that, I was so angry because I felt that he didn't care about me, that he only cared about what he wanted, and I felt that he was trying to take, and I said, who are you to take my right away from me? It is my body, it is my right, it is my choice. I don't care what you think. I have an appointment. If you want to come along, great. If you don't, I don't care. And the sad thing, and their sad reality is, I did take his rights away from him. I took his fatherhood away from him. And most men today are silenced. Actually, all men are silenced, because if a man wants to save the life of his baby, but his girlfriend or his wife want to have an abortion, he doesn't have a voice. He can't do anything about it. And I have met men that have told me, Patricia, I wanted to be a father. I wanted to support her and help her. And I stood in front of the abortion clinic, and I tried to save the life of my baby, and I couldn't. I was escorted by police, by security, and I couldn't do anything. Abortion takes the right away of the baby's life. It takes the true rights of the woman away because she's deceived. She's not, they don't tell her the truth. And it takes the right away of the father. It takes the whole family's right away. Everybody loses an abortion, and that's the reality of it. But I thought he was being selfish, and that he was trying to take my body and my right, my choice away. So I went to the abortion clinic, and my poor boyfriend went, He did not want to be there, but he was there. And during that, he was weeping. And what I felt during the whole abortion were his tears bathed my eyes. And I started to feel really guilty inside because I was thinking to myself, he's thinking it's the first abortion when it's the third abortion I've had in a year and a half. I felt so bad, but I knew that I would not stay with him. I was just miserable. I was suicidal. I was just a mess inside. I was a mess. And a couple of weeks after the third abortion, I left him, and I decided to move away and to start all over, to start a new life. And I thought that that would be the solution to my depression, to my problems, and that's exactly what I did. I moved to a city of Sacramento, California, Sacramento. I was living on my own, and I was looking for a job in the medical field because that's what I knew. And when I was looking at the newspaper, there was a big ad in the paper that said, "Abortion urgently needs a back office nurse who speaks Spanish and English." And I thought, oh, this is great. Like, I'm not a nurse, I didn't go to school, but I can offer I can translate, I can offer my services in Spanish and English. I'm gonna call them to see if they need anybody in the front office. I had an interview, and during my interview, the manager says, "Oh, wow, Patricia, you're post-abortive, you've had 3 abortions? That's amazing. Well, that's gonna help young girls and the women to make it to their abortion appointment. You know, Patricia, we know that you're not a nurse, you didn't go to nursing school, you don't have nursing credentials, but hey, we're gonna hire you as a nurse. We'll train you on the spot, and we're gonna give you top dollar." So they illegally hired me as a fake nurse. This is so dangerous. This is not medical care, this is unprofessional, and I had no idea. I thought, oh, cool, I'm gonna get trained on the spot. And they hired me because they know that most nurses probably won't work in a place like that. And anyhow, so I started to work on a Monday, and when I started to work on Monday, I was taken into the manager's office, and she said, "Okay, Patricia, we perform 50 abortions here a week, 25 on Wednesdays and 25 on Fridays. Today is counseling day, so you're gonna do everything in your power to convince these women to make it to their abortion appointment." Now, 90% of the women that come here are Spanish-speaking women that do not speak any English, which was very shocking to me. But now we know, and now I know that abortion was created to target minorities like myself, right, to get rid of my type of race. And she said, "You will never use the word baby, father, mother, he, she. You can't even use the word fetus gives human dignity. Any word that gives human dignity, you cannot use. Do you understand?" And it was weird because she was training me how to change my vocabulary. And I thought, okay. And she said, when we perform the last ultrasounds that they would have to see how far along they are, you will never let the women look at the screen. The screen must face the abortionist. It must face one of the staff members. They are never to look at the screen. Do you understand? And it was kind of weird to me how she was training me and changing, my vocabulary. But anyhow, yeah. Good. Hi. Welcome. It's okay. Okay. So I counseled 50 women that day, and I remember I would see 13-year-old girls, and they would cry, and I would tell them, this is the best choice you're making for your life. You're 13 years old, you're gonna suffer in this world, you're gonna bring a baby to suffer. Please, this is the best choice for you. And I really thought I was helping. I really thought I was doing an act of charity to these young girls. But then Wednesday came along, and it was a day that I had to assist during abortions. And then I just wanna pause here for a little bit because it's not easy to hear what happens behind the doors of an abortion clinic. I want everybody, our Lord is here, Mary's here, and I want everybody to have peace. I want to ask to please not walk away. I want to ask that. God will give you the peace, because I've had people walk away. Because when they think of abortion, they think it is disgusting, abortion, and they think of those babies, and they think about how they're tortured and what happens to them, and it's frightening. It is very frightening. But I just want to encourage you guys. The Lord gave me this one day when I was praying the rosary. When we hear the stories about the martyrs, how the saints of our church were martyred and tortured and beheaded for Christ, we think, wow, that's so beautiful, like Maria Goretti, Saint Philomena, many saints were martyred and tortured. We admire them. But I just want to remind you guys that the martyrs of today, the little martyrs, the martyrs of the martyrs, are the unborn. The saints of our times were martyred by their enemies. And these little children inside the womb of their own mother are martyred by their own parents. Jesus was martyred on the cross. He was crucified without sin, without fault or condemnation. He was martyred innocent and pure. These little babies were never born to have a sinful thought, a sinful word, a sinful intention, and they were died in the most purest and innocent form, just like Jesus. And I believe with my whole heart that the beings and the creatures that look most like Jesus on this planet are those unborn children. When we see the images of those babies that have been aborted, we're looking at the face of Christ. So when we hear their stories and when we hear how they kill them and they martyr them, we honor their life. We give them dignity. They're holy. These little children are praying for our salvation in heaven. So I get into Planned Parenthood on a Wednesday, and the manager takes me in, and she says, okay, today you're going to be on your feet. You're going to be assisting the abortionist. You're going to be assisting the patient. Time is money. Each abortion can only last 5 minutes. You will never tell a soul what you see behind the doors of this clinic. You will never tell the mothers, and she used the word mothers, which was very strange to me because when you use the word mother, there's a child. Or the fathers that are in the waiting room, that after each abortion, we throw their babies away in the garbage. And, time is money. So when she said that, it was so scary to hear those words, and I didn't understand. I was very confused, and I stayed quiet. I remember I took the first patient into the operation room. She was 15 years old, 3 months pregnant. And I took her in, and she was crying. She was fainting. You could tell she didn't want to be there. And I laid her on the bed. The abortionist comes in, and he had a little table next to his stool, and he said, stand behind me. We're going to start the abortion. And I stand behind him, and this is the first time that I actually saw. Like, I during my abortions, I didn't want to see anything. I closed my eyes, I blocked, but I had to see. And when I stood behind the abortionist, he takes the sheet off of the Mayo stand. And I see all these sharp, instruments. I see scissors, blades, clamps, all sorts of things that didn't look safe. It didn't look good. And he takes out the anesthesia needle, and he numbs her womb 7 times. And then he starts the machine, which is a vacuum, very powerful vacuum. And he takes the tip of the machine, which is an instrument called cannula, and the tip of the tip was pretty much sharp. He starts the abortion, and I stand behind him, and it was something very violent that I saw. It was very violent. This young girl is kicking. She's basically flying off the table, and he's dodging her legs, and he's moving this instrument all over the place inside the womb. It looked so unsafe to me. And then it dawned on me, wait a minute, he cannot see inside of the womb. How does he know he has the clump of cells out? How does he know he's getting the sac of tissue? How does he know he's not perforating her womb? How does he know? Well, he does not know, because it's a complete blind man's surgery. He cannot see anything, and this is why women die during abortions. And since he couldn't see anything, and he calculated by the clock, he said, okay, Patricia, I think I'm done. Can you imagine a surgeon doing heart surgery, telling his staff, I can't see anything, I can't see what I'm doing, but I think I'm done. I think I'm done. Let's put the sutures in. That's not medical care. That's crazy. So he thinks he's done, okay? He's not sure, and he turns the machine off, and it was my job to make sure that he was done. So there was a bag that was attached to the abortion machine, and I grabbed the bag, and I go behind the room of a hidden room behind Planned Parenthood. And they close the door behind me, And there is a big petri dish in front of me, a big dish. And I was instructed to empty the bag out onto the dish. And I emptied the bag out, and I believed with my whole heart that I was going to look for a sack of tissue, because that's what I told this young girl. I told her that a couple days prior. When my coworker takes out these forceps, like these tweezers, she starts to look inside, and she holds up to the light a little arm with a hand that was extended. And she said, "This is part number 1. We need 5 parts of the baby to let the abortionist know that the abortion was successful." And it was as if time stopped, and I could see truth, and I can contemplate. And the first thing I saw on that little hand were that baby's fingerprints that were already there. And I was yelling inside of me, fingerprints describe us, and they make us authentic, irrepeatable human beings. It gives us identity. Nobody has my fingerprint. And she puts that little arm on the counter in front of us, and she finds part number 2, part number 3, which was a leg, and I could see the little footprint and the toenails, and I could see the little hair, part number 4. But it was part number 5 when she held up to the light that really broke my heart. And she held up to the light the baby's head. The baby had eyes, the baby had nose, the baby had little ears. But what shattered my heart was that this baby's mouth was wide open because this baby was screaming for his life. This baby was crying out screams of pain. But there was nobody there that can hear his cries, and there was nobody there to defend that baby. And she puzzled back this body together, and she threw this baby away in the garbage. And she said, "The abortion was successful. The patient can go home." This was so horrifying to me inside, and I was screaming inside of myself. They lied to me. They told me it was a sack of tissue. This is not a sack of tissue. I did not abort 3 sacks of tissue. I aborted 3 of my own children, and they lied to me. And all day, behind the doors of this abortion clinic, it was like stepping into hell. It's a Holocaust. These young girls come in. They're screaming and crying, they faint. They're dragged down the halls. There's blood everywhere, and you're looking for body parts all day. And all these little girls are paying cash back then, cash. And these abortionists literally leave the clinic with a wad of cash in their pocket because it's a blood market. At the end of the day, these bags are stored in a freezer. And I remember opening this freezer for the first time, and they're blocks of ice of little children that are just in pieces, that are just frozen. And I think back, why? Why are all these little children being aborted? And it comes down to because the youth, children, and women like myself, my age and older, and men, they don't know what truth is. They don't know what true and authentic love is. They don't know what virtue of chastity is. They don't know how to live that virtue. And because we have a sexual sickness in our world, a sexually disordered world, those who pay the price of their life are those little children in those abortion clinics. They pay the price, and it's not fair. I was terrified every day that I worked there. I worked there for 1 month. I was scared to leave because I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills, but I couldn't take it anymore. The last day that I worked there, I was supposed to assist a young teenager that was 6 months pregnant with twins, and I just couldn't do it, and I ran out. Since I didn't know who God was, I didn't know He was my refuge. The pain was so great in my heart. I felt like a murderer. I was already suffering post-abortion syndrome from my 3 abortions, and this was just a greater trauma on top. I started to use drugs. I started to use cocaine to heal the pain. So I didn't feel anything, so I felt numb, and I got very addicted to cocaine. And cocaine basically didn't do anything for me anymore. I couldn't even use the drug because I was bleeding so much. I damaged my nose. I started to use a stronger drug, which is called methamphetamine. I started to smoke out of a crack pipe, and I lost myself. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't function because I was always on drugs. I couldn't pay my house. I couldn't pay my cars. And very quickly, I ended up homeless on the streets as a crack addict, completely lost. I couldn't go look for my dad or look for my family because I was trash. I was a failure. My dad always taught me that to be worthy or to be somebody, you had to be successful. And I was a nobody. I was trash. I had pulled all my hair out. I was completely bald. I was so thin. I looked like a skeleton. And I slept on the streets. I slept in cars and crack houses, and I was lost. And one day I looked in the mirror, and I looked at my eyes. I looked at my reflection. And the only thing I could see in myself was death. I didn't recognize that person anymore. And I literally looked like a dead woman walking. And I asked myself, what happened to you? What happened to that young girl that had a family, that had straight A's, that was popular, that had dreams and goals and wanted to travel the world and wanted to be somebody? What happened to you? Who are you? And I had no hope for my life. And one day I was sitting on the street, on the sidewalk curb, and I thought I was gonna die. I hadn't eaten anything for 5 days. I didn't have anything to drink, and I was alone. And I started to cry like a child because I didn't know if I was gonna survive anymore. And I remember asking myself, what's gonna become of my life? What's gonna happen to me? And as I was crying, all of a sudden, I started to feel peace in my heart, an overwhelming peace. And then this memory came back, and I started to feel the love of God. And I started to feel his presence. I felt him looking down upon me through heaven, and I realized that he was there. And I remember that when I was very little and I would come home from CCD, I would run to my backyard and I would look up into the sky, and I felt loved by God, and I would write him love notes and I would send them off in a balloon. And I remember that there was a time where I knew him a little bit, and I would talk to him and I loved him, and that I had forgotten about him, and that I haven't looked up into the sky for so many years. And that day I decided to look up, and I did. And I looked up into the clouds, and I said, I know you're there. You're the only thing that I have at this very moment. I don't have my family, I don't have drugs, I don't have friends, I don't have anything. But I want to thank you because you gave me a beautiful childhood, and you gave me so many blessings, and I destroyed my life with all the choices that I made, and I want to ask for your forgiveness. And at that very moment, to God, a young girl runs out of a restaurant, and she looks at me with these eyes full of love and mercy, and her name was Bonnie. She had a little name tag. And she looked at me and smiled and said, Jesus loves you. Jesus loves you. I'm a waitress at that restaurant, and I saw you crying on the street, and I started to pray for you. And God told me to tell you that even if your father or mother shall abandon you, he will never abandon nor forsake you. He will be with you until the end of time, and he loves you, and he forgives you. And that young girl, when she lifted me off my misery, and she gave me that love that I hadn't felt in so many years, and that dignity, I knew it was the arms of Jesus. I knew it was Jesus inside of her, using her arms, using her words and her gaze to forgive me. I knew it was our Lord himself using her as an instrument. And she said, I don't care where you live, I'm gonna take you home. Well, I ended up in my father's house, just like the prodigal son. And when I knocked on the door, I thought he was gonna be very angry at me. And when he opened the door, he started to cry and weep. And I threw myself at his feet because I saw the pain that I caused my father. And I asked for his forgiveness, and he said, it's okay, mija, it's okay. Everything's fine. You're home. Welcome home. I love you. It's okay. And that was so healing for me because I've always sought my dad's approval. I always felt like I never made my dad happy, and that was very, very healing for me. My mom moved back from Mexico, bought a house in Sacramento, and she looked for me, and she knew that I was at my father's house, and we reconciled, and she called me and said, I'm going to take care of you at home. I've left my job, I have savings, and I'm just gonna focus on you. And when I came home, or came to my mother's home, she sat me down and she had a Bible in her lap. And she said, Patricia, I don't believe in the witchcraft anymore. I don't believe in the New Age. I've come back home to the Catholic Church. And I have been on my knees praying before the Blessed Sacrament for 3 years, offering every rosary, every Eucharist, every Mass, everything for you. And God's given me this miracle. Because he is the King of Divine Mercy that I'm here today and I'm alive. But I thank my mom for her prayers, because I know that God has the prayers of a mother in a special place in his heart. So if you're praying for your child, mothers that are here, if you're praying for your husband, anybody in your family, do never give up. God is faithful. God, the prayers of a mother are so special to God. That's why we have our Blessed Mother. That's why she is the bride. That's why she's the mother of the church. Because her intercession in our lives is so powerful and they're so special to him. He raises the prayers of a mother. He raised it so high that he wanted to have his own mother, right? And they're very, very powerful. And I know that I'm alive today because of my mother and because of God's grace. My mother took me to confession. She took me to daily Mass. She took me to the healed most and all of what I was dealing with, anorexia, drug addiction, suicidal thoughts. But the one thing that I couldn't forgive myself was my abortions. I had gone to confession. I just couldn't forgive myself. I knew God forgave me, but I just couldn't forgive myself. So I went to a Rachel Vineyards retreat for post-abortion healing, and God gave me a gift that weekend that I never expected. I went in there Friday feeling like a murderer, looking down at what I had done. My children, I killed them. They don't exist. I saw it with my own eyes. I know where these little babies end up. They end up in a dumpster. And I was just so sad because I thought that they no longer exist. I wiped them off the earth. Saturday evening, during a prayer and a meditation, God gave me a big grace. And he gives this grace to most of the people that go on this retreat. When I closed my eyes and I prayed, I saw my 3 children. A little girl, a boy, and a girl. And I started to walk up towards them. And my children started to scream, Mama, Mother, Mother. And I was stunned by this because I wasn't Mother. I wasn't a murderer. Mother, we love you so much. We're praying for you. We're in God's glory. We're praying for you to come to heaven. We're alive. And they would look at each other and they would grab their clothes and scream and say, she can see us, she can see us. And all of a sudden I heard Jesus' voice in my heart and he said, do you see the little dresses that your daughters are wearing? The Virgin Mary put those little dresses on them so you can see how beautiful they are. Do you see the clothes that your son is wearing? And it's to your liking and to your taste? The Virgin Mary knows your taste. She knows what you like. And she dressed your son that way so you could see how beautiful he is. Do you see all the little bows in your daughter's hairs? Well, the Virgin Mary combed their hair. Your mother combed their hair and made them look beautiful. Know this, my daughter, that Jesus, was victorious. I am victorious over death on the cross. And your children are alive and they're in my glory. And one day you will see them in heaven. I have so many women come up to me and tell me, Patricia, but I lost 2 children to miscarriage, or I had 3 miscarriages. I lost a couple of children. I had a couple of losses. And I just want to say today, if you've lost a child, if you've had an abortion, or if you've had a miscarriage, nothing is lost in Christ. Everything is restored. And the day that you go to heaven, you will see your child again. And you will be with your child for all eternity. And that is the promise that God gives us. And those little children in heaven, okay, they're saints. They're praying for the salvation of their parents. And that is truth. And the Virgin Mary cares for those little children. Those little children are under her mantle. I believe that. And I believe that the biggest wound in the Virgin Mary's heart today is abortion. I believe that with my heart. That is the biggest wound in her heart. I was so grateful when I woke up. I was so happy. I couldn't believe I was a mother. I couldn't believe that I saw my children. And that weekend, I made a vow to God, and I made a vow to the Virgin Mary and to my 3 children that I would defend life, that I would do everything in my will to repair the damage that I've done. It was not easy when I first started. I actually named my children. It's good to name your children because it gives them identity. My little girl, her name is Mariana, in honor of the Virgin Mary and Saint Anne, Mary Anne, Mariana. My little boy, his name is Emmanuel, and my little girl is Rosario, in honor of the Rosary. And the first years were very, very hard. I was very persecuted, not just by Planned Parenthood, but by my family. Those were the ones who persecuted me the most. I lost so many friends. It was very tough for me to go public. I was criticized and ashamed, but God started to show me great fruits years later as I was about to give up. There was many times I just wanted to give up. I couldn't do it anymore, but I've never asked God anything in return. When I do this pro-life work, I don't want to see fruits. I don't want anything in return. I want to do reparation, but He's so good that He's let me see all the babies that have been saved. I've gone to many countries. I've given my story, and when I come back, the mothers come and bring their children to me. By the grace of God. It's Him who saves, not me. And it's His greatness and His great mercy. And you know, one day when I was holding a baby in my arm that was saved by my testimony, it dawned on me. When this baby was smiling back out at me, I thought to myself, wow, not only was this baby saved, but one day maybe this baby will become a father, a grandfather, a great-grandfather. His whole generation was saved. His whole generation was saved. When one baby is aborted, that whole generation is wiped out. 67 million abortions in this country. We've had 67 million generations wiped out of this country. We're all called to be pro-life. All of us here today. I am not the only pro-life person here. We live in a generation where it's legal and it's normal to kill a baby in its mother's womb. And I believe with my whole heart that when we face God on Judgment Day, He will ask us, He will say to us, born in a generation where they were killing babies inside their mother's womb, what did you do for them? Did you do anything? Did you pray for them? What did you do? Did you raise your voice? Did you march for them? Did you walk for them? Did you do anything for them? I believe that such a time like this, God wants to raise up saints. And that's what He calls us to be, is our saints. I really wanted a family. The only thing that I really desired in my life, because I come from a broken family, and the thing that hurt me the most was my family that was just separated and just messed up. I really wanted a family, and I didn't know if God would give me a husband because I went public with my story. God did give me a dream. He showed me that I would have a future husband, and so I dedicated 9 years of my life praying for my future husband. I would meet really good Catholic men that wanted to go out for coffee, for dinner, and this would make me very sad, but now I laugh, but back then it would make me very sad. They would say, Patricia, I want to take you out, for dinner, for coffee. Well, what do you do for a living? Oh, well, I travel the world, and I am a public speaker. Oh, that's amazing. Well, what do you talk about? Oh, well, I talk about my 3 abortions, my work at Planned Parenthood, my drug addiction. They would never call me again, ever, ever. They're terrified. You could see their eyes, deer in headlights. But God gave me, He is faithful, a true St. Joseph, a handicapped one, right? Because St. Joseph was perfect, and a good St. Joseph. When I told my story to my husband, he said, well, I have a story too. And I knew it had to be somebody that had the heart of Jesus and the eyes of mercy that would understand the greatness of God and not see my past. And thanks be to God, I've been married for over 3 years. I didn't know if I can have a child. Have one abortion, you run the risk of being infertile. Well, 3 years ago, I gave birth to my first earthly daughter, a little girl. Her name is Maria Victoria. And I remember when I went to Paris, my book came out in France. So I did a tour around France. And I remember I saw the statue of Our Lady of Victories. And I said to her, if I had the chance to become a mother again, and you give me a little girl, Our Lady, I promise to name her after you because she would be a victory in my life. And that happened. I knew it was going to be a girl. Before they did the whole gender reveal thing, I knew it was going to be a girl. And her name is Maria Victoria. And just 3 months ago, I gave birth to our second little girl, Her name is Chiara Lumina. I'm a big fan of Saint Philomena, and Saint Philomena's birth name was Lumina, which means light. And Chiara is a servant of God. Chiara Corbella Petrillo was a pro-life speaker in Italy that gave her life for her son. And she is heading to the high altars, and I named my second little daughter after two saints. And God has blessed me with a family, and He's faithful. And that's why I want to tell everybody here to never lose hope, to never stop praying for your family members. You know, God is so amazing. I can really connect with Saint Monica and Saint Augustine, because I only prayed to God to forgive me. I only asked Him to forgive me and to heal me. That's all. And my mom just prayed, just prayed for God to heal me and God, to restore me. But look how great God is. Look how great He was with Saint Monica. Saint Monica prayed for her son's conversion. That's what she really wanted, in his baptism. But not only was he baptized into the faith, well, he became a priest. And not only did he become a priest, he became a bishop. And not only did he become a bishop, he became a saint. And not only did he become a saint, he became doctor of the church. And not only that, she became a saint. Do you see how great he is? When we ask something for so simple, he makes it so great. And I feel that he's done something like that in my life. And today, I am living not my dream, because God has a dream for us. He dreams a dream for us. But I am traveling the world. And I am doing not my work, but the work of Him, who is great. I currently have a show on EWTN. I never thought I'd be on EWTN. I remember EWTN was a big part of my healing. I'd have the channel on all day, and they helped me with my faith. And now I have a pro-life show every week on the Spanish channel on EWTN. And I just feel that my mom kind of had that Saint Monica prayer, and God did wonders in both of our lives, and that's how faithful He is. So really the story that I'm telling today is not about me. It's about Him. It's about His glory. It's about His greatness and what He can do in a broken person like myself. And like I mentioned, my book came out a couple years ago, and it's had a great success. It's been translated in Croatia and Slovenia, and it's on the process of being translated in Italy and in France, and it's changed many lives. Many youth have written to me, many priests, many men, women, everybody. God's touched many lives through that book, and it's available here. It's $20, and it does help my ministry and help me continue to do this work. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys being here. I know that God called each and every one of you by name. I know that this is a special call from Him, and I really do, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate everyone being here today. And I want the round of applause to go to Him, not to me, because I sinned. It's easy to sin, but He's great. It's for His glory, so it's for Him. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Boy, God's mercy is incredible, isn't it? So I hope that that this Patricia's story will help you speak with others that don't think that they can ever be forgiven. I know we all know them, and those that you would really like, that our God will help them. That is our calling. We are all the prince and princesses of our Lord. So thank you so much for coming, and Patricia will be in the back there if you'd like to speak with her or get a signed copy of her book. And Nora, did you want to say anything? No. Okay, thank you all. Have a good night.